Boom! Texas Longhorns strike again in the NCAA transfer portal. Murad Watson, a defensive tackle out of Syracuse, has pledged to the Texas Longhorns. He becomes the fifth portal pledge of the spring portal window, following Levon Johnson, a fellow defensive tackle, kicker Mason Shipley out of Texas State, Emmett Mosley, a wide receiver from Stanford, as well as Jack Endries, the tight end from Cal. Gerry Hamilton, this is the fifth defensive lineman that Texas has attracted in the transfer portal, interior defensive lineman. What are your thoughts on Texas going so heavily and on Murad Watson individually?
Yeah, so Rod will get into the I think the why he's a really good run defender. But look, we said this in January that this was going to be number one target for Kenny Baker. You have to be able to play the run out of the portal. Have to be able to play the run first. And I think there's a lot of reasons we can get into around that, because Texas feels really good about their pass rush on the edges. At linebacker, they've got more of those guys than ever. And they want to be able to take away the run and let their pass rush go after that. And I think it's a great combination. But also in the SEC and against the schedule they're playing this year, Ohio State in the SEC schedule, I think being able to stop the run on the interior is goal number one. And I think Murad Watson is look, Rod will get into it, but he's going to be arguably one of your top two or three guys at that on this roster. Mm-hmm. And now you sit there and you look at it and say, because Travis Shaw's been slowed this spring, right? Kind of like Jermaine Lole was on a pitch count last year for Texas in fall practices and whatnot. So Texas now has a full boat to go with as far as experienced players against the run. Because what are they targeting? They want to be ready for the Ohio State game. They know they got really good young players. Those guys can develop, but you got to be ready to go right out of the gate at Ohio State, and you're going to do that with experienced players now in a six-man rotation.
That game coming up August 30th, first game of the season, to Jerry's point. Rod, what did you see? You watched a little film of Murad Watson out of Syracuse, originally from Irvington, New Jersey, by the way. That's near Newark. What did you see out of him that you liked?
I love the fact that he is such a force in the run game. Gerry talked about it. I mean, I looked at Pro Football Focus. They have a term, at least a stat they call stops. It's considered a failure for the offense. Basically, a guy that makes a play on defense, but a failure for the offense. He's got 15 stops last season. Guy had 31 tackles. So he's extremely disruptive in the run game. And he's got to use his hands really well, sheds blocks really well. Really stands his ground effectively at the point of attack. I think he can anchor against a double team if he has to. But I think with him and Cole Brevard, I think you got two guys, in my opinion, who excel actually at kind of stopping the run and being disrupting the run game, who I think have the potential. Cole Brevard's already proven it. But I think this young man has the potential, too, to be someone who can add some pass rushing ability with a guy like Kenny Baker. And you got multiple years of eligibility with this young man, too. So that also can be a way for you to kind of, I don't know, you want to stop this, what seems to be this trend every year of having to stockpile tons of D tackles via the transfer portal. So you bring in someone, like Murad Watson, who can stabilize the position for a couple of years for you. You got an Alex January who's in the pipeline. You got some other young guys you want to develop, and then maybe you can just supplement and not have to go kind of all in, wholesale, investment in transfer portal D tackle. Not that you do what you got to do. It's a free agency, right? It's a way of filling in the gaps. But I don't know if it's the healthiest way of roster building. And I don't think this is the preferred method for Texas. They love to do a little bit of both. Seems like right now it's more lopsided towards bringing in guys via the portal at that position. I think, someone like Murad Watson helps you stabilize that position.
Bobby, let's get into that more. Let's get into that more, because I think this is a huge key in the portal pickups on the defensive line.
Yeah, Levon Johnson is also a multi-year guy, the guy they picked up out of Maryland in this spring's portal. I think that's one to look at. And then you also look at the possibility of Hero Canoe having another year. Cole Brevard is gone. But what I think they're making up for is they missed on quite a few guys in the high school ranks coming out. I mean, Sadir Mitchell was their lone defensive tackle signee one year. Well, he transferred out. Then you had a year where it was just Alex January, DeAndre Robinson, and Melvin Hills. Well, DeAndre Robinson never made it to campus, in part because Bo Davis took another job, right? And so I think that they're backfilling right now this position more so than any other position because they're called upon to do it. What I like, to your point, Rod and Gerry both, is that Johnson and Watson both have multiple years to go, and they kind of match with the same timeline as Alex January. The other thing I really want to mention this here, I think the addition of Johnson and Watson also allow Alex January to play more of a 3 technique, which is more his natural position instead of over the ball. And so I think that's going to be an added benefit of getting these interior defensive line bodies. You can put guys into their more natural positions overall. You look at the list here, Gerry, of overall defensive tackles, Murad Watson, Lavon Johnson, then the young guy Myron Charles and Josiah Sharma, Travis Shaw, Cole Brevard, Hero Canoe, as well as Alex January. You feel good about the depth now at defensive tackle heading into the SEC?
I feel great about the depth this year and next year, but that's why I wanted to get in that conversation. I feel really good about where the position's headed. Now, there's no guarantees all these guys come back out of the portal, right? But let's just say they're happy and they come back, and because Texas has retained players. But yeah, no, look, I feel great about it. And here's the other thing. What if Travis Shaw actually has a lingering knee issue that keeps him maybe from playing much next year? You just outcovered yourself on that as well. So I just love when you look at this list, I love the thought that Cole Brevard, Travis Shaw are the 2 guys that are guaranteed that won't be back next year. So if you just take those 2 guys off and bring the rest of those guys back, look at where you're at a year from now. When Myron Charles and Josiah Sharma, who Texas likes, are sophomores. We don't even have Justice Terry in there, which he'll eventually be in that group, but he's playing more. He's in the D-line meeting room, but he's playing more on the edge while he gets his weight up. So we're going to list him more as an edge right now, or an edge/D lineman, but he'll be a D lineman long-term on the interior. But I absolutely love where Texas is at this year, and I really love where they're going to be at a year from now. I mean, think about guys, Lance Jackson, if he's 280, and Justice Terry is NASCAR guys on the inside. I love what Texas has done, what they're doing, where they're headed, and it takes a little pressure off. This takes a little pressure off Kenny Baker in the 2026 class from a numbers perspective as well, because it's not a great class nationally like 2025 was. So maybe you drop down, and instead of trying to fighting for 4 of these guys around the country, you only have to fight for 2 or 3, which is that's a much better scenario if it's not a great year nationally on the tackle.
One more thing on Murad Watson, 6'2", 6'3", 320 pounds. Does that sound about right?
This is 6'3", 313 last season, so right in that area code.
That's just a big old dude. Also made freshman All-American by numerous publications. 31 tackles, as Rod mentioned. Had 1 sack, but really it was late in the year against Miami, where he had 6 tackles, and then had a good bowl game against Washington State, where he kind of started standing out a little bit from just another freshman off defensive lineman that he's in. Rod, you looked at that same list that Gerry had up there. You think Texas is now SEC ready along the defensive front?
Yeah, I mean, I really do. I think you've taken a position that was an uncertainty for Texas, and now potentially projecting ahead. Now it could be a strength for you next season. It may be a strength for you as early as mid-season, this upcoming season, right? But in 2026, you seem like you're going to have a lot of veterans that are going to be coming back that have already been within the system. But listen, Alex January is a guy I'm really excited about. I know we talked about, the D tackles they brought in. They're doing a really good job of adding depth to that position. But I like Alex January as a guy that really should stand out as someone who should be there, one of those every down D tackles, right? A guy that can be there, be a force for you on early downs against the run, and also be a playmaker that can penetrate and deliver some pressure in the passing game. So right now I love bringing in Murad Watson. He's a guy that excels against the run. I love Cole Brevard. I think he's got a very kind of all around skill set as a D tackle that can be disruptive. And I like Alex January. Those are kind of my 3 favorites that I'm looking at right now that I think could be standouts in that room. But they want depth so they can rotate guys and keep big bodies fresh.
Yeah, I'm amazed by what they've been able to do in the transfer portal at defensive tackle. Never did I think, and Gerry, you and I, Rob, we all talked about it. Did y'all think they would be able to get 5 that they liked at defensive tackle? I was thinking 2 or 3 maybe, and try to build up around it, but they went and got 5. That's pretty darn impressive from Steve Sarkisian, Brandon Harris, and that staff. They did not leave a stone unturned, which I think is really strong. Strong work for those guys. Murad Watson, one of the top handful of defensive linemen in the entire portal class this year. They also picked up Levon Johnson recently, who was going to be a starter at Maryland. All in, this spring portal window has been very, very strategic and striking, I guess, almost precision-like for the Longhorns. By the way, he went in officially on Saturday, takes an official visit beginning on Monday. That's how quickly the Longhorns staff is working right now. Anything final we want to hit people with before we congratulate Murad Watson one last time?
Yeah, so 20 tackles in his last 5 games as a freshman. That's 4 tackles a game at D tackle. That's a lot in college football. Yep. I mean, when you start averaging over 3 tackles per game as a run defender, that's up there in college football. The other thing was he picked Syracuse over Tennessee coming out of high school. He was already deemed to be SEC good coming out of high school. And Elijah Robinson and those guys got him to stay closer to home and go to Syracuse over Tennessee. He made official visits to both. But that he was a guy that kind of popped up later his senior season as a high school recruit. Obviously, Tennessee thought he was very SEC worthy coming out of high school. They just lost out to Syracuse, and now he will finish his college career in the SEC.
Yeah, looks like it. Longhorns getting a big one. Murad Watson, one last word to you, buddy. Hook 'em.